For the not uncommon situation where the counts or fractions that come up in constructing a histogram are needed for subsequent calculations, there's a function called histogram list that returns those counts and fractions as a list rather than as a chart. For example, here is some sample data consisting of a list of temperature measurements, and here's a basic histogram of that data. And this shows the histogram list function applied to the same data. The result from histogram list is a pair of lists where the first list gives the boundaries between the bins and the second list gives the count of the measurements in each bin. The count of measurements in each bin can also be seen by positioning the mouse pointer over each bar in the histogram. Positioning the mouse pointer over different bars in this histogram displays the same counts as the numbers shown in the result from the histogram list function. One sometimes useful way of displaying the result from histogram list is in a table like this one. This input uses the partition function to organize the list of bin boundaries into a list of pairs giving the boundaries of each bin, and then displays the result in a grid showing each of those pairs with the count in the corresponding bin. Here's a variation of that table, still using the result from histogram list, but where the first column in the table is the midpoint of each bin rather than a list giving the boundaries of each bin. Instead of using partition to organize the list of bin boundaries into pairs, this input uses the moving average function to replace each pair with the midpoint of the corresponding bin. The numbers in that table can also be displayed as a plot rather than as a table. For example, here is that same input using list line plot rather than grid so that the result is a plot. The plot markers option set to all causes a dot to be displayed at each point, which is one way to emphasize that aspect of the data. And this shows that plot together with the original histogram. Similar plots and tables can be made for all of the different types of histograms. For example, here is that plot with PDF included in both the histogram function and in the histogram list function, so that the vertical axis shows the fraction of the total rather than counts. A line plot like this is sometimes called a frequency polygon. These line plots show the same information as the corresponding histograms, just with counts and fractions displayed as points on a line rather than using bars. Using lines rather than bars is especially useful when showing several data sets in the same plot, since it is typically easier to make sense of a plot with several lines than it is to make sense of a plot with several sets of bars drawn on top of each other.